Dramatis personae, witch, observer, captain of the king's guard, first knight, the king's council, the king's inner council of 9, justices of the royal court, the Duke of Diamondshire, the Thorn, and Cassandra, sylvan dryad, queen of truth, witch, hungry vultures scry in their witness trees, an arrival from deeply velvet shores, a detachment ordered by majesty to seize and extinguish him instantly, this thorn that disagrees. Captain, the king's mistakes are none. One lord will not agree. The wise will blink and freely abdicate their reason in exchange for gain. Which, it is said this thorn does wassail in woken wonder. What justifies any king where the sworn march in step to the rule of wind and fancy? First knight, with caution we will move. Deception plays upon the minds of those who value fairness kind, and upon their graves we smile. Duke, my blade is here, inside your inky shadows. What below the seal does this writ say to all? Council, this esteemed council, having received allegations of these a lord's omissions, though they be so few, so unintentional, so sub rosa, so difficult to detect, this thorny knight does graduate to proven treason. Notice the immediate collapse of objective justice in these opening lines. Legal procedure has been fully weaponized. The King's Council does not uncover a plot. They use the machinery of a star chamber to elevate minor, undetectable omissions into a capital offense, simply to eliminate an ideological opponent. Duke, hear this. His sovereign sword may seek my blood, but it is the dragon's teeth he does now sow. This very eve here visits me a fairy queen, with more than warns of a wafting foul wind. Cassandra, this lord you seek no longer sleeps in a sovereign's darkened castle. The castle of the one seethes darkness still. For those who walk asleep, they see no ill. Prepare your glaives to cleave before the cross, and hear the doves. They fly away and kiss the air of your last breath, and feel the chill of an unshrived death. The crown's crimsoned blades brook no sylvan fairy. We shall find this lord in his castle seized. And so across their fosse they did ferry, through ironed gates that seemed to breathe and wheeze, and wink and grin, until the knights, all 100, all crept within. The physical dread left in the wake of those creeping knights is entirely deliberate. We have intuitively felt the ritualistic unease of this setting. Now we will systematically deconstruct the architecture that built it. Eugene Cantrall's work operates as a graphic closet drama. Historically, a closet drama is a play written specifically to be read rather than performed on a physical stage. Because the writer is freed from the logistical constraints of set design and actor blocking, they rely on intense linguistic density to construct the world directly in the reader's mind. Cantrall merges this dramatic format with a second structural choice, the modern romantic fragment. We see this historical precedent in works like Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Kubla Khan. The fragment operates on the psychology of omission. By presenting an incomplete narrative, it suspends easy resolution. This forces the reader to synthesize the ending. You are no longer a passive observer of a play. You must actively calculate the outcome of the knights breaching the keep. Since there is no physical stage, the text provides tactile anchors, descriptions of skeletal trees, heavy shadow, and tarnished medieval armor ground the mind's eye in a specific physical reality. Within that reality, the script establishes the inner council of 9, nobility simultaneously serving as justices. This frames the narrative explicitly within a state of macro-level political doom. By interlocking the linguistic weight of the closet drama with the unresolved tension of the fragment, the text engineers a space where you construct both the scenery and the ultimate moral judgment. Cantrall achieves historical gravitas through a technique we can call diction as time travel. The vocabulary roots the fantastical elements in a specific period of moral and legal authority. The dialogue relies heavily on Elizabethan and Jacobean rhythmic syntax. Phrases like, "Where be this lord?" and "Of a thought our king does surely fear," strictly control how the lines are spoken. This syntactic rhythm forces the modern reader to slow their cadence, mirroring the heavy gravity of a 17th century epic. You cannot rush these lines. The language demands you treat the stakes as absolute. This antique map of Northamptonshire illustrates the stylistic lineage of Cassandra and the Sylvan Dryads, tracing back to Drayton's historical epic Polyolbion. His work mapped the physical English landscape by assigning it mythological significance. The hills and rivers were personified as active observers. Cantrall pairs this with Gothic and Victorian confessional influences. Here, the environment does not just observe, it actively reacts to and judges the moral decay of human institutions. The Witch and the Fairy Queen are not whimsical additions. Drawn from these Elizabethan and Gothic traditions, they operate as the sole remaining authorities capable of judging the state's moral collapse. Beneath the narrative, the text relies on specific rhetorical machinery to execute its themes. This begins with the weaponization of bureaucratic language. The King's Council uses severe anaphora to justify the execution. So unintentional, so sub rosa, so difficult to detect. This rhythmic repetition exposes the absurdity of the state's newfound reason. By emphasizing that the Duke's actions are explicitly small and difficult to detect, the Council proves the trial is a fabrication designed to crush dissent. This legal dread is matched by environmental dread through the Burkean sublime, the aesthetic threshold where vastness, obscurity, and terror intersect. The text creates a suffocating atmosphere by applying biological verbs to structural objects. Heavy sibilants in "seethes darkness still" pairs with iron gates that breathe and wheeze, implying the castle is a living, rotting organism reflecting the state itself. This decay requires a central metaphorical inversion. The Duke observes that loyal knights will slay 1,000 lilies to protect the royal weed. The beautiful and natural are systematically sacrificed to preserve a parasitic sovereign. This marble bust of a classical playwright roots Cassandra's role as the Queen of Truth in Greek tragedy. Like her mythological namesake, she speaks absolute realities to leaders blinded by power, and her warnings go entirely unheeded. The ritualistic unease generated in the opening scene is a mathematical result of these choices. The anaphora, the sibilants, and the Burkean sublime work in tandem to construct the feeling of inevitable doom. Sophisticated poetry functions as an open system, an intentional state of polysemy, where the text supports multiple, simultaneous interpretations. Readers immediately identify the political interpretation, a critique of authoritarian law used to silence free speech. The text outlines how rulers prioritizing pomp over justice inevitably manufacture treason to secure their power. Parallel to this is the chivalric interpretation. This evaluates the collapse of the knightly code. When kindred knights are ordered to butcher their own brother simply for his disagreement, the social contract of fealty is permanently shattered. Finally, the moral interpretation places the Sylvan Dryads as the ultimate adjudicators. Here, the natural order stands in quiet, eternal judgment over human hubris. These interpretations do not compete for dominance. The architecture of the poem accommodates the political corruption, the broken chivalry, and the environmental judgment all at once. These themes synthesize entirely in the Duke's warning. He tells the knights that their sovereign is currently sowing dragon's teeth. The king's manipulation of the law to crush an ideological opponent is the precise mechanism that guarantees his own destruction. By removing all dissent, he removes his connection to reality. The final prophecy leaves the sovereign destined to hang alone in a withered tree of his own thinking, a complete intellectual and moral stasis brought on by total isolation. Cantrall's Fragment relies on the dense machinery of 17th century Gothic and Elizabethan traditions to illustrate a precise reality. In a court actively decaying under the weight of its own authority, the thorn of disagreement remains the only vital sign of life.